The SANDF confirming that a number of wounded troops have now finally arrived here in South Africa from the eastern parts of the DRC. It's a pretty short statement from the SANDF confirming essentially that a group of critically injured soldiers have now arrived in the country. They say they are in urgent need of medical attention and have been successfully repatriated from the DRC. The statement goes on to mention there that these troops will receive a high-level medical care. The remainder of the troops, we're told, are scheduled to arrive in South Africa sometime during the course of the week. The SANDF, in coordination with other relevant role players, they say, has worked tirelessly to ensure the safe return of these wounded soldiers. They're urging the public to respect and afford privacy to the injured members and their families during what they call a healing process. The statement rounding off there with this line that they committed to the welfare of their soldiers. Further updates, we're told, will be given as necessary. The context here, of course, is that there is renewed attention, if you like, on the situation in the DRC. We've seen in the weekend gone by a number of soldiers being laid to rest. They were part of the 14 who were sadly killed in ongoing fighting with M23 rebels in the city of Goma. It seems that conflict, of course, has continued, and that's why we are seeing that in some instances there are those who have been injured who are in desperate need of medical attention. It's not yet clear how many have been brought back home or whether or not we've got a consolidated tally of how many soldiers in total have been injured. What we do know, of course, is that there are these ongoing talks for an immediate ceasefire, which seem to have the backing of the M23 rebels. And this, of course, comes off the back of that important meeting between SADC leaders and those from the East African community that was held in Tanzania a few weeks ago. Several heads of state, including our very own President Cyril Ramaphosa, was present for that meeting. Let's get you a sense of what else we know so far. Sophie Mokoena is the SABC News International Desk Editor, and she joins us now via our telephone line. Sophie, this is, of course, an important development. We're told a group of soldiers have finally arrived in the country, but we still don't really have numbers of how many of them are now receiving that medical attention.
Well, indeed, we got reports and a statement from the South African National Defence Force that some of those troops were critically injured in the eastern part of the DRC have arrived in South Africa. We know that a group of soldiers, those who were injured, left Goma yesterday in the morning, and they went through the border of Rwanda, and from there, the plane that was carrying these injured troops from Summit DRC, the first stop was Tanzania, where there were other troops that were supposed to be dropped off in Tanzania, and then Malawi, and of course in South Africa. But some are still back, and there are efforts to ensure that they are also evacuated from Goma, and they are also brought home for medical attention. What they did, they gave priority to those who are critically injured.
We know, of course, there had been a lot of debate around the route that should be taken. The M23 rebels had wanted the troops to take a route along the border with Rwanda, which, of course, didn't necessarily land well here at home.
Well, I think that is not an issue anymore, because there were negotiations with all the stakeholders. And as we speak now, these troops are in the country. They were taken to hospital for medical attention. And I think there were agreements. And in these issues, you always find a way to deal with challenging circumstances, because diplomacy, that's what diplomacy is all about. You engage until you agree. And the fact that you have these soldiers now in the country who were injured will be receiving proper treatment, I think it was based on the negotiations. Remember, since the meeting of the SADC and the EAC, the senior personnel of militaries of these affected countries has been talking to ensure that there's a way at the technical level to deal with those challenging issues that needs technical expertise, like the repatriation initiating the evacuation. And therefore, we see the work of these generals who have been given that assignment at technical level or technocrats to deal with operational issues. They are really hard at work. That's why today you are talking about these troops who were injured, who are now back in the country for medical attention. We know that also yesterday there was an announcement by SADC that an EAC that the two regional organizations have agreed to appoint two former heads of state, one from Kenya, you know, the former president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, the former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, and the former prime minister of Ethiopia, to form a team that will facilitate the talks. And you can see all stakeholders are hard at work to try and find a solution in relation to what happened in the DRC and what still has to happen in terms of ensuring that you are able to have that ceasefire that will lead to more operational issues that might be implemented. And therefore, it looks like all sides are beginning to agree. We know that even those who have taken arms in the eastern part of the DRC are saying they are committed to the talks. And therefore, I think SADC and EAC is hard at work to ensure that you find a solution to the current conflict in the eastern part of the DRC. And hopefully that will also lead to more troops coming home.
Yeah, absolutely. We also heard the United Nations call for an immediate ceasefire in that part of the country. So you certainly get a sense that there are a whole lot more voices pressing for this outcome. Meanwhile, back at home, Sophie, we've heard really startling remarks being made by soldiers, a general in particular speaking at one of the funerals at the weekend, making a statement that, you know, in some instances, politicians have created an environment where South Africa is dealing with a Mickey Mouse defense force. How have those comments landed as those debates continue about whether or not soldiers in the DRC are well equipped?
Well, we haven't received any statement from the South African National Defense Force on those utterances, or from the minister or the commander-in-chief, that is the president of the republic. I think these issues will be handled behind the scenes. The fact that perhaps the general gravitated to political statement, as he pointed out that it might be a political statement, I think that will be handled by political heads, because even going as far as saying South Africa wants to be a big brother, these are some of the words that you can't use. Say a country must be a big brother, because this is what's actually posing a problem for South Africa in most cases, because people see South Africa as projecting itself as a big brother. So I think these are political statements, and I think the political heads of relevant departments will respond at some point in time. But the question is, he also raised some of the critical issues, and I think maybe government will take time to respond and clarify these issues.
Absolutely. Well, Sophie Mokoena, as always, thanks very much indeed for helping us connect the dots in the wake of this breaking news.